Amid our daily busyness, have we ever paused to ask ourselves what we are truly seeking? Is it the pursuit of worldly fame and fortune, or the desire to gain the recognition and admiration of others? These goals drive our relentless efforts, as if achieving them could bring inner contentment and peace. However, when we look back and examine these pursuits, do we find that they are like fleeting shadows, ephemeral and transient? Buddhism teaches us that these pursuits of external things are merely fleeting clouds and smoke. They are not what our inner heart truly needs. The true treasure has actually existed within our hearts all along. It is only that we often overlook it. The wisdom of the Dharma precisely guides us to return to our inner self, to discover that inherent tranquility and wisdom, rather than merely seeking lifelong fulfillment in the external world. The Buddha was once asked what constitutes supreme right enlightenment, a question that reflects the doubts present in the hearts of countless practitioners. In our pursuit of enlightenment or truth, we have exerted great effort, but what is true enlightenment? Is it a distant, unattainable realm, or a profound experience that can be integrated into everyday life? The Buddha's answer is precisely the key that opens the mind, enabling countless people to suddenly see clearly and realize the true meaning of life. One evening, in the serene bamboo grove of the monastery, the Buddha sat peacefully beneath the Bodhi tree, radiating a gentle light like a bright moon illuminating the darkness of the world. At this moment, Bodhisattva Manjushri stepped forward slowly, joined his palms respectfully, and softly inquired, "World-honored one, what is supreme, perfect enlightenment?" His voice was not loud, yet clear and powerful, reaching the ears of every disciple present. This is not only his doubt, but also the ultimate question that all practitioners seek to resolve throughout their entire lives. What is supreme, perfect enlightenment? What does awakening ultimately signify? Is it a lofty and profound realm beyond reach, or practical wisdom accessible in everyday life? The Buddha did not answer immediately, but smiled gently, his gaze soft and profound. He slowly glanced around at everyone, as if urging each person to contemplate the question and seek their own answer within their heart. After a moment, he asked in return, "Manjushri, what do you think enlightenment is?" Manjushri Bodhisattva pondered for a moment and replied, "Enlightenment should be the realization of the true nature of all phenomena and the transcendence of the cycle of birth and death." The Buddha nodded slightly, seemingly affirming, yet also appearing to await a deeper understanding. His gaze fell upon another disciple, Ananda. "Ananda, why do you think sentient beings are deeply entangled in afflictions and find it difficult to extricate themselves?" The Buddha asked. Ananda, after a brief contemplation, respectfully replied, "World-honored one, sentient beings are afflicted due to ignorance and are bound by attachment." The Buddha smiled faintly and continued to ask, "Then what is ignorance?" Ananda pondered for a moment and replied, "Ignorance is the lack of knowledge of the truth, the delusion regarding the ultimate reality." "Well said," the Buddha nodded. "Ignorance is like a layer of mist, obscuring the eyes of sentient beings, preventing them from seeing the true nature of the world." He slowly raised his hand, making a sweeping gesture as if to disperse the invisible fog. Cultivation is precisely about dispelling this veil of confusion, allowing the light of wisdom to illuminate the path ahead. Upon hearing these words, Bodhisattva Manjushri joined his palms respectfully and asked, "Sakyamuni, if ignorance is the root cause of sentient beings' suffering, then how should practitioners eliminate ignorance and attain perfect enlightenment?" The Buddha still did not answer directly. Instead, he cast his gaze toward a gently flowing stream nearby. The stream flows clear, reflecting the blue sky and green leaves. Yet, when a gentle breeze passes, ripples form on the water's surface, instantly fracturing the reflection and rendering it indistinct. The Buddha softly said, "The hearts of sentient beings are like this stream, originally clear and transparent. But due to attachment, forgetfulness, and affliction. Like stones cast into the water, ripples arise in layers, disturbing the calm surface. Hearing these words, he pondered and asked, "Does the Blessed One mean that we should cease casting stones into the mind?" The Buddha smiled and said, "Indeed, that is so. More importantly, one must learn to let the stones already cast settle, allowing the mind to return to its original tranquility." Upon hearing the words, the disciples fell into deep contemplation. After a moment, a young disciple broke the silence and asked in confusion, "Doesn't that mean not thinking about anything and not doing anything?" The Buddha smiled and shook his head, saying, "No, not thinking and not doing are themselves forms of attachment. True practice is not about suppressing thoughts, but rather, when thoughts arise, not being drawn by them or controlled by them." At this moment, a practitioner named Siddhartha stepped forward, a hint of confusion on his face. After paying homage to the Buddha, he said, "World-honored one, I diligently practice every day, deeply engaging in meditation. Yet why do I still feel inner turmoil and cannot attain true liberation?" The Buddha listened quietly to Siddhartha's words, his gaze gentle, but he did not hasten to answer. Instead, he softly picked up an oil lamp from beside him and handed it to Siddhartha. The flame of the oil lamp appeared faint under the sunlight, yet its fire remained steadfast, illuminating a small surrounding area. "Take this lamp and go look into the cave ahead." The Buddha's voice was peaceful and calm, as if it were just an ordinary instruction, yet it radiated profound wisdom. Siddhartha paused, not fully understanding the Buddha's intention, but still respectfully accepted the oil lamp and slowly walked toward the cave. The cave was deep and dark, with not a single ray of light penetrating its entrance. Siddhartha lit the oil lamp, and as soon as she entered the cave, the surroundings immediately brightened. The lamp's light reflected off the rocks and earth, and faintly visible on the cave walls were some small insects crawling. Siddhartha quietly observed everything, as if seeking the Buddha's guidance from these scenes. A few minutes later, he returned to the Buddha, holding the oil lamp with both hands, his face full of doubt and anticipation. "Bhagwan, I have seen the rocks and soil inside the cave, as well as some small insects. There is nothing else extraordinary within the cave." He paused briefly, as if sensing that he had not fully grasped the profound meaning within. The Buddha smiled gently, his gaze remaining serene. "What about the darkness?" Sutta paused for a moment, then suddenly comprehended. The darkness had vanished. "Because I have lit the oil lamp, the darkness is naturally dispelled." The Buddha gently nodded. "Indeed, darkness does not truly exist. It is merely the absence of light. You only need to illuminate the lamp of wisdom in your heart, and the darkness will naturally disappear." Siddhartha's mind was suddenly filled with clarity, and his face revealed an expression as if he had been bathed in enlightening nectar. "The Blessed One, I understand now that darkness does not exist within the cave itself, but arises from the absence of light. The restlessness and anxiety in the mind are the same. They have no inherent existence. It is only because the wisdom within the mind has not yet manifested that afflictions occupy the heart." The Buddha nodded with approval. "The radiance within your heart that you speak of is enlightenment. Within the heart of every person lies a luminous lamp, only obscured by ignorance. Practice cultivation is about polishing this bright lamp, allowing it to radiate its light anew." At this moment, Suda's mind seemed to be illuminated. His restlessness gradually dissipated, and his heart was filled with profound tranquility. He began to realize that the true purpose of practice is not to struggle against external disturbances, but to allow the inner light to naturally manifest through awareness and letting go. As the Buddha said, "Light is not an external object, but the arising light deep within our hearts." The practice is the process of polishing this lamp to rekindle its flame. The gaze of Bodhisattva Manjushri was contemplative as he looked toward the Buddha and slowly asked, "World-honored one, if the lamp of the mind could dispel darkness, Does that mean that once this lamp is lit, one can attain supreme enlightenment? Upon hearing this, the Buddha smiled gently, his gaze profound like the stars, and slowly said, "The nature of enlightenment is inherently complete and requires no external seeking, just as the sun always hangs in the sky. Even when obscured by clouds, its light never ceases." Sentient beings, due to long-standing habitual tendencies, are accustomed to seeking support externally and clinging to gain and loss, thus often forgetting the innate brightness they originally possess. Manjushri, Bodhisattva, fell into deep contemplation, recalling countless practitioners who day after day chanted sutras, meditated, and engaged in austere practices, even distancing themselves from the mundane world, believing that this alone would lead to enlightenment. However, they still feel inner unrest and continue to struggle in the confusion of samsara. If the original nature of awakening is inherently complete, why then do sentient beings remain trapped in delusion? The Buddha perceived his doubt and gently said, "Practice is not about accumulation, but about letting go." Beings often believe that awakening is a form of attaining the path or an achievement of a certain state. However, true awakening is not about attainment. It is about relinquishment. This sentence struck all the disciples present like a bolt of thunder. They had never thought this way before. The goal of practice is not to accumulate wisdom or master numerous scriptures, but to completely let go. Manjushri, Bodhisattva, having attained some understanding, softly said, "Bhagwan, you mean to say that we should abandon all attachments, including attachment to enlightenment itself?" The Buddha's hands were slightly sweaty, his gaze gentle yet resolute. Indeed, sentient beings cling to the self, cling to the dharma, cling to gain and loss, and even cling to enlightenment. Little do they realize that these attachments themselves are obstacles. Just as someone builds a boat to cross a river, but after crossing, unwilling to let go of the boat, instead carrying it onward, believing it brings more safety and value, not realizing that if one cannot relinquish this boat, one can never truly embark on the journey to freedom. The disciples held their breath and calmed their minds, attentively listening to the Buddha's teaching. All phenomena in the world arise from the confluence of causes and conditions. There is no eternal, unchanging entity, nor an independently existing self. Enlightenment is not the discovery of a new truth, but the relinquishment of attachment to illusions. At this point, the Buddha pointed to a nearby Bodhi tree and continued, "Look at this tree. It inherently possesses the potential to grow into a towering tree, but without the nourishment of sunlight and rain, and without the attentive care of a gardener, it cannot thrive." Currently, Lien Dun Wu exclaimed insightfully that the Buddha's intention is that cultivation is like sunlight and rain, which can help us awaken the inherent awakening nature. The Buddha smiled and nodded, "Exactly so. Spiritual practice is not about creating something new, but about removing obstacles so that the inherent nature of awakening can naturally manifest." At this moment, Siddhartha once again approached the Buddha, still with a trace of confusion in his eyes, and respectfully asked, "Sire, I gradually understand that enlightenment is letting go of attachment. But if one lets go of everything, does the mind become empty of all things? What then is the purpose of our practice?" The Buddha gently raised his hand, palm upward, making a gesture as if holding something, and smiled as he said, "Siddhartha, if you hold a stone tightly in your hand, would it be difficult to pick up a bright pearl?" Siddhartha immediately nodded in agreement. "Yes, if my hands are already full, I cannot pick up anything else." This is the truth. The Buddha slowly said, "The hearts of sentient beings are like a hand tightly gripping a stone, filled with attachment, discrimination, desire, and fear. They believe these can provide them with a sense of security, grant them value, and offer them meaning. But only when they are willing to release their tight grasp can they truly touch the treasure within their hearts." Sudha gazed intently at her own hands, as if only now realizing that she had been trying to grasp something all along. never having considered that true enlightenment is not about holding tightly, but about letting go. The Buddha ultimately concluded that true enlightenment is not about acquiring, but about letting go. Abandon the attachments you believe can bring you security, and relinquish those things you mistakenly think belong to me. When you completely let go, you will realize that you have never truly lost anything. The words of the Buddha resonate deeply, echoing for a long time in the hearts of every disciple. They stood silently, their hearts filled with doubt and contemplation. Manjushri Bodhisattva bowed his head in deep thought, his mind swirling with myriad reflections. Although he has grasped part of the truth of enlightenment, he still feels some obstacles that are difficult to overcome. He lifted his head, his eyes shimmering with the light of wisdom, and sought guidance from the Buddha. World-honored one, you say that renunciation is the key to enlightenment. If that is the case, then what exactly must we abandon? We devote our lives to cultivation precisely to pursue the truth. How then can we abandon the truth itself, abandon the Dharma? The Buddha quietly gazed at Bodhisattva Manjushri, smiling faintly, a profound depth flashing in his eyes. He understood that this issue touched upon the very foundation of practice. The matter of renouncing dharmas is precisely the challenge every practitioner must confront before ultimate enlightenment. The Sutra of the Buddha's gentleness states, "You regard the Dharma as the path to awakening, believing it can guide you to the ultimate truth. But if you cling to the Dharma, you will never grasp its true nature." The disciples lowered their heads one after another, seeming somewhat perplexed. Seeing this, the Buddha gently nodded and slowly continued. Have you ever seen reflections in water? When the surface is calm, the reflection is clear and distinct, but once the water is disturbed by ripples, the reflection becomes blurred and indistinct. The Dharma is like a reflection on the surface of water. It originally serves to save sentient beings and to guide them toward the light of Amitabha. But when you become excessively attached to the Dharma, clinging to the form of practice is like the water's surface being disturbed by waves, unable to clearly see the true reflection beneath. Dharma and awakening are fundamentally inseparable. True awakening does not lie in grasping the images of Dharma, but in using the guidance of Dharma to relinquish attachment to all images. After hearing this, Manjushri Bodhisattva's heart felt as if a gust of wind had swept through, suddenly becoming clear and enlightened. He suddenly realized that he had always believed that practice was the pursuit of Dharma, but he had overlooked that true enlightenment does not lie in attachment to the Dharma, but in transcending the Dharma itself and all forms of attachment. The Blessed One, Manjushri Bodhisattva, suddenly awakened and asked, "Then how should I let go of my attachments?" The Buddha smiled gently and nodded. "My attachment is precisely the greatest problem for all sentient beings. You always think of yourselves as independent individuals, constantly centering all actions around I, mine, and my doing. In fact, I do not truly exist. Rather, I temporarily exist due to the confluence of causes and conditions. Your suffering arises from attachment to me. Letting go of the self and relinquishing attachment to the ego is true freedom. So, how do I let go of the self?" A disciple hesitantly asked. The Buddha looked at him quietly and slowly said, "Letting go of the self does not mean completely abandoning the ego, but realizing that the self is not an eternal, unchanging entity. It is merely a part of illusion. You imagine yourselves as independent existences, yet this is merely an illusion created by clinging. The essence of practice is not to reject the self, but to realize that the self is not truly real, to understand the relationship between the self and phenomena, and to see that the emergence of the self is not a singular existence, but a temporary phenomenon formed by countless dependent conditions coming together." Bodhisattva Manjushri closed his eyes and contemplated quietly. Suddenly, it was as if he understood something, and the fog of confusion in his heart gradually dissipated. He understood that true practice is not about pursuing a fixed goal, but about transcending all attachments and entering a state of selflessness. As the Buddha said, the ultimate goal of practice is to let go. Let go of the self, let go of the dharma, let go of everything that binds you. At this moment, the Buddha looked at him again and smiled, saying, practice is not about doing something, but about letting go of something. Abandon all attachments and discard all illusions. Only then can you truly experience emptiness and freedom. True enlightenment does not mean possessing more things. Rather, it is the removal of all obstacles that hinder you from seeing the truth. At this moment, Manjushri Bodhisattva is like being reborn from nirvana. He comprehends the true practice, no longer bound by external forms, no longer constrained by notions of self and dharma, but transcending all boundaries to enter the omnipresent nature of awakening and emptiness. As the Buddha's words gradually came to an end, the disciples' hearts felt as if the fog had been lifted, suddenly becoming clear and enlightened. The true essence of practice is not some distant realm, but a deep awareness and letting go within the heart-mind. In this profound teaching, the disciples understood that the true essence of enlightenment is not the pursuit of some ultimate fruit, but the gradual removal of attachments and prejudices in the mind through daily practice, transcending all internal and external constraints. A glimmer of compassion shone in the Buddha's eyes as he looked upon his deeply inspired disciples and continued, practice is neither an escape from the world nor a pursuit of any form of karmic retribution. True practice is the integration with life. It is the moment-to-moment awareness, experiencing and realizing the true self in every detail of daily life. You must understand that cultivation is not merely meditation in the temple or chanting scriptures. Cultivation is precisely your daily life. Every breath, every smile, every interaction with others is a part of spiritual practice. When your actions are no longer swayed by the desires and attachments of the mind, and your heart is calm and pure, then you are connected with enlightenment. The words of the Buddha are like the morning sunlight, illuminating the hearts of every disciple. They found their own path in the Buddha's teachings, discovering the path of practice leading to freedom and awakening.